Hey,
Hey everybody,
here we are.
I'm Jenny,
I'm Paul.
and we're with the Go Box Art Crate
We're
subscription
not just
box.
with the Go Box Art
We
Crate.
are the Go
We
Box
are the Go
Art
Box Art
Crate.
Crate.
Okay, so tell us what we're doing tonight, Paul.
I don't know, probably rolling our eyes at each other.
Probably.
All that fun stuff. Anyway, so we are going to be painting our Moon Shrooms painting. This was actually, put this right here. This was a fun one for me. We've got a lot of new subscribers this month, so most of you don't realize, but most of the time I just do regular old landscape paintings, and this is...
It's out of your wheelhouse.
Well, I don't know if it's out of my wheelhouse. It just wasn't something I normally do, but...
So out of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, I did pretty good.
You did really good, yeah, I was impressed. When you said you were going to paint mushrooms, and
Yeah,
I was impressed.
I was too. I was like, hey, that really worked out well. But
Yeah, we've already had a couple of people do it without the video.
we have, yeah.
And it turned out really great based on Instagram posts. But let's go ahead and zoom in.
Yeah, let's do it. So I was really inspired by a lot of like books that we used to have as kids back in the 70s that were probably late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah,
kind of
I
like
could see that.
folk art. And Mullen Troll? That was one of my favorite books, and then there were some gnome books and stuff. And that's kind of where I was kind of inspired for this. And then there's also some elements that I stole from that one horror artist we've been watching on YouTube in terms of the blending and stuff like that. So
I can't remember his name, but shout out to him.
Yeah. Anyway, so this painting is a lot of fun. Typically, we don't do a lot of drawing when I teach paintings, but we're going to be doing... This is actually, to me, it's more of a drawing than a painting, really. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start off with a little toast. Glass of water, glass of wine, glass of cider, glass of soda, whatever you got. Let's toast to trying something new. Let's toast to the weather finally feeling like fall up here in the Pacific Northwest. And let's do it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Donk. That's refreshing. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out with this painting. I've got my instructions up here. So if you're following your instructions, feel free to do so. I'm just going to kind of reference it once in a while, just make sure I'm not going in a completely different direction than what you're expecting.
It's been a little while since you painted it.
Yeah. I did paint this one, what, twice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a couple different variations of it. So let's get this out of the way. Here we are. We're going to start with our blank canvas. And the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my Go Box coaster. If you guys have this handy, grab it. If not, you can pause it for a second and grab something. Anything will work. You can use a mug. You can use
anything.
A jar lid.
A yogurt lid.
Yogurt lid would be good. And I'm going to kind of just look and see. Yeah, that's pretty close. I kind of want it to be about a third of the way in from the left and about a third of the way down from the top or so. Kind of give us a nice little focal point. Now we're going to start off with our smallest brush, which is very unusual. Mm-hmm. We never start off with our smallest brush typically. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rinse it off. I want it to be rather damp. And I'm going... Oh, we need to talk about our colors a little bit. We got our blue, we got orange, yellow, black, white, and brown. That's how we're going to...
Basically.
That's it. I mean, you guys know which colors
on camera, this looks black.
It does. We're starting with the brown. The black we use almost none of during this painting. The only time we use it is kind of the shadows under the rocks. And also to create... Yeah, we'll get there. So at first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this kind of thinned down brown.
Did you thin it with some water?
Yeah, I just left the brush wet.
Oh, okay.
So next Tuesday...
Let's get this party started, says Philip.
Let's do it.
We are on it.
Welcome, Philip. And anybody else, feel free to comment, ask questions. Jenny should be keeping her eye on those comments. There is a little delay from when you type it to when we see it to when we reply. So be patient. We'll get to it. So I'm just going to paint that circle. And I'm going to go ahead and switch to my big brush. I'm going to give it a quick little rinse. And basically, what we're going to do from here out is we're going to, I don't know if there's a term for it, but we're going to make this canvas look like parchment. And the way we're going to do it is I'm going to mix a little brown and a little yellow together. Probably about, I don't like giving ratios necessarily, but probably about 2 parts brown to 1 part yellow. And we're going to add just a tiny little dab of white.
Oh, so we're making parchment color.
Yeah, I was saying when we were going to parchment this canvas. Yeah. Oh, you got it. So, and what I wanted to do with this painting, and this is something I don't care if I'm get inside the lines a little bit. One of the things we try to avoid when we're painting around a circle like this is just painting circles around and getting concentric circles. And so I try to just kind of loosely work around it. And I also want it to be a little bit blotchy. So sometimes I'll add a little bit of extra white. Sometimes I'll add a little bit of extra brown. But I want to work away from this circle, and I try to get my brush moving in all kinds of different directions. I want it to have that nice weathered parchment look. And I think of like the old maps that J.R.R. Tolkien used to draw in his books as kind of my sepia-toned.
I think of the Marauders map from Harry Potter.
That's an excellent example if you want something a little
modern.
more modern. And I'm just going to keep working away from this.
Could people blend in like more yellow if they wanted to?
Yeah, sure. If you wanted to go a little bit more yellow, absolutely. You could even go more brown if you wanted to. There's really nothing you could do wrong with this other than maybe painting the whole background blue or black. But even then, it's up to you. I mean,
it's your painting.
It's your painting. Do what you want. If blue really speaks to you, do it.
We've been watching a lot of art restoration shows on YouTube, and that's really oddly relaxing, and you learn a bit.
Yeah, so shout out to Baumgartner Art Restoration for occupying our evenings lately. What I thought was most interesting about that is, and it makes sense, is he said great painters don't necessarily make great art restorers, and great art restorers don't necessarily make great
as you watch him get into that, you can kind of see why. Just the technical stuff. A lot of artists are good at technical stuff, but a lot of them are absolutely bored by technical stuff.
Well, and the instinct to make it your own.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't have done that here, so let's add.
That's how we ended up with Monkey Jesus.
That's right. And that's actually how we got into watching Baumgartner. Anyway, back to what we were talking about.
Are you, so as we get away from the moon, are we wanting to darken it up a bit?
Not too much with this particular painting.
Okay, so I noticed you added some dark brown there.
I do like to, and this is something you guys will find when we do more paintings together, I do like to, if I can, darken up my upper corners.
Kind of like the last painting, the Watcher.
Yeah, it could almost like a vignette.
They could go together. This is the daytime happy scene. No, this has got the moon in it. Never mind.
Yeah. But I like to do that because if you can darken up those corners, make it kind of a vignette, it helps pull everything, helps pull your eye towards the middle. Jenny, when Jenny designed she designed the Watcher painting first, and she's like, "This is the palette." And
here we can show yours. For those who...
The Watcher?
Yeah, so this was the one we did last week.
Yep, this is the one we did last week. But when she designed this painting, she didn't do it with the blue. And when I started painting this one, yes, we could have done it without the blue. We absolutely could have. But I really wanted, since I was really looking for something that was very vintage feeling, I felt like we needed this powdery blue with the orange and yellow. And so then we worked, and when we did the live tutorial for the Watcher, we added a little bit of blue on our crow, and waste not, want not. Now, if you guys have the subscription box, you get paints every month. Hang on to the extra paint. It'll last a while.
Quite a while, and you can always use it as like adding a pop of color to some other painting.
So if you got one of the colors from last month, I don't even remember what we painted last month.
It was the red.
Yeah, so if you've got some of that red and you feel like, wow, I want to add some red to this, actually you could add
red
some of that, some of that red we used, that flame red, would be awesome added to the mushrooms. But feel free to use whatever you've got on hand. All right, so I was kind of messy with this. That's okay. That's kind of the way I paint. If you guys have watched me before, I'm messy. I'm using quite a bit of white with this. Quite a bit of yellow. Again, like Jenny said, use however much color you want. You could feather in some blue up in the corner or something if you wanted to, but maybe do that if you're feeling really confident. If you're brand new, only do what you feel comfortable with. Well, unless you're just only comfortable with just staring at the canvas and being afraid to start.
That's the hardest part, is the staring at the blank canvas. We all go through it.
Yeah, I think our teacher, one of our mentors when we were growing up as artists together, Dave, really inspired me that it was more important to start than it was to have an idea.
Yeah.
And so
you can always paint over everything.
Yeah, and so I would always, especially back then when I was a teenager, and was really inspired by modern abstract. Remember, I used to do a lot of abstract stuff, and my goal was to have the whole canvas covered, no matter how big it was, within like 20 minutes, and then step back and see what was going to develop from it. And that was kind of a fun way to paint. It wasn't like I was just covering it with a color. It was like, I'm just going to start slapping paint on there and see what happens.
Hey, speaking of which, we're covering the whole thing, right?
Yep, we're covering the whole thing because this is our Parchment.
Really, I didn't really think about that, but it totally has that 1970s
Totally
style. This painting does.
If you guys like this style, let us know, because I would love to do some more. I was actually thinking maybe another kind of Americana-inspired Christmas painting, maybe. Holiday painting in the wintertime. That was a skeptical, I was thinking maybe something with a Norman Rockwell kind of vibe or something like that.
Interesting.
Without people in it. Trust me.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Trust me on this, people. We don't want to try people yet. Jenny could do people. People is not my thing, although, I don't know, I guess if I tried to, I could probably figure it out. Practice. So I'm getting pretty choppy and uneven, and this is kind of I think it's, this particular painting, I'm considering this like, this is underpainting. For those of you who are new to painting, underpainting is also a good term for it is primer. We're adding a base coat to paint on top of, and even though the canvas comes with pre-primed, it doesn't seem to me like the paint sticks as well to that pre-priming as it does to just regular old paint. So one thing I've done with this is I've kind of let it be a little lighter, kind of coming down through the middle where our mushrooms are going to be. That's what we.
Now you see it.
Well, you don't have to. That's just kind of what I did as I was working on it.
It's actually something I can alter a little.
Yeah, and if you want to, just take a little bit more white and just blah, 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 right through the middle here.
You have to make the noise?
You do. You got to make a blah, blah, blah. Everybody hear us okay? We're trying a new microphone tonight. I just want to make sure.
Oh, you didn't tell me that.
Yeah, but I see that when you sneezed right before we went on camera, I saw that it picked it up. So
the red bar was illuminated very bright.
It was the sound guy in the back of the van with his ears plugged because it was so loud. So one of the things is when we're doing this technique is we end up getting a lot of start and stop marks with our brush. I'm okay with that on this painting. Like, it's, unless you have like a really hard stop line, what you can do is you can just very lightly just drag the brush back and forth across any of those marks, and that'll kind of fix it. Yeah, but I don't feel like it has to be, so smoothed out. Now you'll find that at this point, it's very tempting as a beginning artist to keep brushing, and I'm brushing and brushing. I'm doing it myself, so Anybody else, it's going to be very tempting to do that. Resist that urge. We're going to put our brush aside. So rinse it off. I always like to give my brushes a really good rinse when I'm done with it, with the step. We're going to want all of this to dry so we can start drawing on it. So let it dry for a minute. What we're going to do while we wait for that, though, is we're going to work on our moon. And we can always come back. Since this is a very simple palette, we can always come back later and make some adjustments to our background. But I think by the time we get to the point where we get the mushrooms in there, we get the moon color, we might want to come back in and put a little bit of a cloud in this top right corner. If we do that, that's great. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to switch to my medium size, my second largest brush. This is our number 8.
Yep.
If you guys get the subscription box, you get a set of these brushes with your first month. And this is our number 8. It's the same brush you guys get. So, and this is the same brush I used to develop the original painting. So there's no funny business going on. Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to take a little bit of my blue, and I'm just going to start. If you look at the moon, you get in this kind of area right over here. It's kind of where there's a lot of craters. I think that's where the Sea of Tranquility that's over there, I believe.
That's such a cool name.
Yeah, so I'm just going to blot in a little bit of the blue there, and then I'm going to start using my white, and I put quite a bit on there, and work around my edges. And brush back into the blue, but I'm just going to let this carry my color out, and I do want to go out far enough that I am basically covering my initial outline. I got a little sloppy there. That's all right. That happens.
I have a question that might help people watching too. Are you glazing over the blue, or are you just working between it, like in between it and on the edges?
So we just started with a blob,
yeah,
and we're kind of bringing the white into the blob a bit, and then pulling away from it.
So you're not glazing over the top of it necessarily so much with the white? No. Okay.
No, you're doing yours a little different because you did more individual craters.
Yes, I am. I like painting the moon.
I think the moon is one of those things that's just very satisfying to paint because it's really, I mean, even if you just painted a just pure white circle, people understand what you're showing them. If you add texture to imply that there's more going on to it, then that's just a bonus.
And you can Google a picture of the moon and paint every single little crater as it is, but I think generally if you just paint lots of little splotches,
yeah, people
are going to look at your painting and know it's the moon, and nobody's going to like reference a photo and look, wait a minute, let me look at this crater. Is this crater?
You know, I'm pretty sure that Van Gogh didn't paint the moon exactly right.
Definitely not.
So, I mean, if he can get away with it, we can get away with it. One thing you might want to try if you're looking at your own moon and you feel like, wow, that blue, I don't love it being quite so blue, and some of you might not like that. I'll show you. You can take just this little, the brown that we're using is very polite, and you can really easily mix a little bit of that brown in to your blue, and it just tones it down. It doesn't take very much. And so if you feel like, I want it to be, and actually
more natural,
it gives you more of almost like a green cheese kind of color.
A great big ball of cheese.
Yeah. And it just takes a little bit, and you can pre-mix some on your palette if you want. But, I mean, that's something that if you really wanted to tone it down a bit, you can add just a little bit of brown to your blue as you're working. But that's optional. You do it how you want to see it. I did it on mine, but you just do the same. It's the same process. It's just a matter of, hey, do I want to add a little bit of brown to it to kind of tone it down so it's not quite so.
So are we wanting to cover the brown outline?
Yes.
Okay, so we're just working out towards that edge.
Yep. It's okay if you leave a little edge.
Yeah, I think a scrawny little edge gives it.
I mean, we kind of outline the mushrooms, so an outline around the moon is not completely out of place. but take your time on this. We're not going to really revisit it. We're going to imply some craters lately, so... And you can always, like, what I find... like
lately? You mean later?
Later.
Okay, I was like, what?
You knew what I meant. I haven't even drinking very much, so...
No.
Maybe
I like the
that's
addition of the brown on here, turning that slightly green. That's actually really nice.
Yeah, this brown is a great addition to add to blue anytime you want to. Like, this blue and brown together make an awesome sea color. We got a question there.
Berthanata, I joined late, but trying to catch up.
Yeah, you can always rewind if you need to.
Pause and rewind. And
yeah.
Hey, can you fast forward? Like, if you were like, okay, I caught up, now I want to go to the...
Well, you can't fast forward into the future before...
No, I know that. I mean, like, if you rewound, you can fast forward.
Yeah, you can get caught back up to live.
Thanks for making me feel real smart.
It's alright.
And that's not what I meant.
Payback comes around once in a while. Remember? Lately, later.
Okay.
We celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary next Tuesday, so when you hear us picking on each other,
it's familiarity. We're basically siblings now.
And it's yes, we are. And it's usually pretty one-sided. It's usually me tolerating it.
Right. Right.
All right. So I've just kind of got just some color going here. What looks really nice, what I was starting to say earlier, is sometimes it's better to let this be a little bit more tinted and dirty to begin with. When I say dirty, I mean it's just got more color. It's not quite so pure white. And then to come back later when everything's dry and just put some pure white on top to really brighten it up. You might want to... I'm going to kind of clean up my...
Yeah, that's actually a technique we use in several of the studio paintings that we do live. In-person classes, and we'll do dark spots on the moon, let it dry, and come back and then glaze over it with white, because the white is thin enough or transparent enough that you'll be able to see the dark color through it, but it definitely softens everything up.
Yep. And really what we're doing right now is we are...
Thank you for saying happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you. It is definitely... I was saying.
Glazing. We were talking about glazing with white.
Yeah, these colors play together really well. So sometimes we'll do paintings, and you guys will discover this as we go along with the subscription, where the colors you have to be a little bit more careful with, and that one will dominate another really easy, and it's just you have to be careful how you use them. This particular palette is really, especially on something like this where we kind of are going with earthy tones, is really forgiving. We can kind of play with this. And actually, the one color that's on our palette that is always one that tends to cause issues when we try to make adjustments later is whenever we mix black into things, it feels like it's harder to come back later and make those adjustments if there's that dark and intense of a color involved, or even in our water jar.
Yeah. Hey, if you're waiting for that to dry, we could show our paintings.
Yeah, let's do that.
For next month.
Yeah.
So you guys get a little peekaboo.
I think you've got the painting.
Peekaboo view of what we're doing for November.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to give a little disclaimer. Mine is the first version, because I always paint a couple.
Yeah, so let's see
one to
yours.
just sort of feel it out, and then the other to get the final step-by-step
Let's
pictures.
see Jenny's first. So we're going to want to let this dry for a minute or so we can continue on. So here's Jenny. She's got this wonderful... What kind of owl is this, Jenny?
It's a barred owl.
A barred owl.
So it's sitting on a lighthouse.
Yep. So you can see he's on the rail, and there's the glass. We actually saw a barred owl down at the coast a couple years ago when we were down for a painting event.
And this one, we're sending a template with graphite paper,
Yeah.
so you get to trace the owl first.
You do.
It's a basic outline. There's no like here's where we're gonna shadow. It's just a basic outline with the apple-shaped face and the round eyes and the beak and the body.
Anytime we paint animals, we typically will send a template with graphite paper. Now, keeping it with our coastal theme and our lighthouse theme, here is our lighthouse. You know, it's amazing. These are painted with the exact same palette.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see it, but they also have very different values to them. Now, if you look very carefully, right there.
It's the owl.
You know,
so we wanted them to
there's
go
our
together.
Owl sitting on the railing. And we'll probably end up making our owl just a little bit bigger.
So I think this will be the lighthouse, and then we're going to call this one the light keeper.
Yeah.
So I think this is a really exciting month for me.
We'll call this one the light keeper. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And then this one will be called the kept light.
And if you are in the Pacific Northwest, this is Hasita Head Lighthouse, which is just south of Yachts.
Yeah.
Getting down in the Central Coast area.
It is.
And it's haunted.
It is haunted.
It's haunted by the Gray Lady.
And we go there.
We hike up there. You park down here and hike up there, and I've never seen any Gray Lady, but there's a lot of panoramic views everywhere that are gorgeous.
Maybe we should post some pictures on our Instagram.
Yeah. Well, yeah, definitely.
So, all right. So the next thing we're going to work on, let me grab my little cheat sheet, make sure I'm in the right spot. Yeah, so we're in mushroom, time to paint some mushrooms. So when we start drawing our mushrooms, a lot of times when I paint landscapes, I just kind of paint back and I work my way forward. This one is a little different because this front mushroom is our star of the show. So we're going to draw it first. And let me just check and see what we did here. Okay.
You drew it first.
I did. So I drew it. We're going to use our smallest brush. And I'm going to show you kind of a fun little way to get this underside showing, because that's really probably the hardest part in getting this one shaped right. And we're going to get that shaped first, and then we're going to work from that. So I'm going to get my brush wet, and I'm going to add maybe just a drop of water to my palette, and I'm just going to mix some brown in it. So what I want to do is I'm going to move down, like if I were to think of this as being a third and a third, I'm going to go a third and a third or so. And basically what we're going to paint is a kind of a stretched out infinity logo, or symbol.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a figure eight. So if you wanted to do it that way, I'm just going to kind of go like this. Paint it like that. I need a little bit more paint on my brush. Because this is where it crosses over. I mean, we're going to paint over that, but that's just an easier way to get started with this. And I'm going to actually make a little adjustment. I feel like mine's a little too narrow, so I'm just going to make a little tweak.
Can we paint a caterpillar with a hookah sitting on top?
Absolutely. You know, the old legend, Mr. Ross, we're not affiliated with Bob Ross Inc. We just love Mr. Bob. He used to always say, this is your painting, this is your world, make it however you want to see it. And so, feel free. So I just added mine. I felt like it needed to be a little bit wider. Now, to get the cap shape, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start tracing from this edge, and about the point where it starts to curve back in, I'm going to go ahead and let that come up. A little curve, almost like we're painting a nostril. Then mound up. And try to pull it back in. If you need to start on this other side and come back up and match them, you can do it that way.
Kind of looks like a funky little gnome hat.
It does. And if this is still wet, you might be able to, like I just took a little damp brush and just brushed out that little sketch mark. There we go. That works. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the stem for this. And I really wanted this to almost feel like bell bottoms.
Okay.
You know, almost psychedelic, almost bonsai-ish. I'm going to start kind of narrow here, and this one's going to kind of curve down and give a nice little S shape, little S curve. If you're picking up wet paint from your canvas, that's okay. It's all right. Now I'm going to.
Yeah, because we can commit to everything later, right?
Yeah. This other one's going to kind of mimic it, but not quite be quite so bold. Not so. Going to be a little bit more vertical. And again, if you've got a damp brush and your paint is still dry, you can brush out. See what I'm doing, Jen? I'm brushing out my sketch line. If you can't, if your paint's already dry and you can't, that's all right, because we're going to paint over all this stuff anyway. But it just kind of makes it a little cleaner. So mine's got like, it's really boogieing down. Mm-hmm. So it's got some movement going, and that's okay.
Mine's good, actually. Oops. I just copied what you did.
My phone falling on the ground. Over there. The next one we're going to do is, since we're really interacting with this main mushroom first, is I'm going to go ahead and do this other side. Now, when I was growing up, we spent a lot of time in the woods in fall. We would do a little bit of foraging for mushrooms, but mostly we're doing some hunting, which I don't do anymore. But one of the kinds of mushrooms we would always be excited to find was called a Shaggy Mane, and these are not Shaggy Manes, but these are shaped very much like them, and they're just kind of a, what would you consider that shape? It's just kind of a potato shape, really.
Potato shape?
Yeah. Just,
oh, the ones in the background.
Yeah, in the background.
I thought you were talking about the big one.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, they are shaped like, yeah, right, like a little russet potato.
This one I want to feel like it's kind of curving a bit, so to get this started, I'm just going to kind of start right, get a little bit more brown on my brush, right about here.
So Shaggy Manes, are they the ones that are brown, like real crinkly?
No, they're white.
Okay.
And shaggy. And they are one of the best mushrooms, but they're the kind that they decompose so quickly once you pick them. You literally have about 12 hours to cook them before. What is the deal? My phone just loves to jump off of the table.
That's good.
You saw it. It was literally sitting here. Okay. Anyway. Somebody else is joining late.
Oh, that's Daniel.
Oh. I don't know.
Is the sound wonky, or is it my end? Tell us how it sounds, Daniel, because Paul is using a new microphone.
Yeah, and if anybody else just notices it sounds...
Yeah, let us know, you guys, if you do notice anything weird with the sound.
Yeah. But anyway, so this other one, our stem is going to kind of continue this shape. I'm going to come in here a little bit narrower, and it is going to come down and kind of curve. I'm going to kind of just pick up underneath here. This one's kind of got a fat stem, fatter than I wanted, but that's okay. I'm not worried about the base of these because we're going to put rocks in there to hide them. And I'm really just using straight brown at this point. And then on this side, I don't want to go over my moon, but this one's really bending off to the left here. Just almost kissing the moon there. Yeah, they're kind of Twinkie shaped almost. Well, that's fun. Yeah, I got mine just a little bit more movement in it, and that's okay. I think it's funny, I always reassure myself, yeah, I did what's right. Static when he talks.
Oh, scratchy.
Let me see if I can turn this down a little bit. Is that getting better by any chance?
Like a rustling plastic bag.
Oh, no, that's just my voice. Is that better? Is it better now? I turned the gain down a bit. It could be I had the gain up too high.
Yeah, let us know if we still sound like rustling plastic bag.
Yeah, this is the first time we've used this microphone live. I did use it when we recorded. Oh, you're doing extra credit. Jenny's doing an extra mushroom.
Well, I needed to make space so it wasn't like getting right on the moon.
much quieter? Does it still...
But the rustling is still there.
Interesting.
How hard is it to plug in the other one?
It wouldn't be that hard for me to plug the other one in. Easy time for me to do that. So I'm going to do that real quick. It's just sitting right here.
So we need the hold music.
Something like that.
So hold on just a minute, guys. Paul's gonna put the old mic. I don't think no. How is it now, guys? He did some adjustments. If it's bad, he'll change it out. Kind of sounds like an old AM station you're picking up from 500 miles away, and then after you switched it, it's better hearing your voices higher.
Okay, we'll just, no problem. Easy fix, guys. I knew it was a stretch. Trusty old right here. Okay, is that better?
So we got our old microphone plugged in.
Get it all back together.
There's no way to test it, is there?
Well, no, I mean, we're just going to have to rely on other people's ears.
Tell us what you hear. Or don't hear.
All right, there we go. That's our regular microphone that we typically use. So, oh, there's my head. Just waiting. All right, while we're waiting for feedback.
Okay, much better. Yay.
Okay, good. Okay, good to know. Where was I going? Okay, next thing. Oh, beautiful. Okay, cool. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a couple rocks in this foreground, and you can do as many or as few as you want. And what I like to do, the reason we do the rocks is one of the things that's always hard when we paint a tree or something like that is I want to ground it. I want it to feel like it's going into the ground, and sometimes it's hard to paint forest floor. So let's just go ahead and put a couple rocks in. And so to do that, I'm just going to like to be...
Daniel says, I should have been here when it started. I could have spoken up then. Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's why everybody kept bailing out on us now.
Yeah, that's why people would pop in and pop out.
So shape these rocks however you feel like. Again, we're kind of keeping this potatoes. We're going to fill these in, so it's okay if they have, different sketch lines and stuff like that. So I like it to kind of come down a little narrower, fairly flattish along the bottom, because this is where it's connecting with the ground. And then it's also kind of cool to just kind of paint in a couple smaller pebbles. What? No Bam Bam? Ha ha ha. I heard you roll your eyes, Jenny. You can just paint all kinds of little shapes right there. And all it is, we can add more later. It's totally fine. Right now, all we're getting is just a general reference of where we're going to be painting. I'm going to go ahead and if you can scrub this out, get some of it out if you can. Get some of your lines from your mushrooms. But it's okay because we're going to paint over this with a kind of a cool color, actually. Before we do that, so that's basically our roughed in shape. Jenny added more mushrooms to hers, and you can do that as well. Can I show them yours, Jenny?
It's just kind of in the yucky phases.
Well, we're all at the same page. It's okay. Nobody's judging.
Okay, go ahead.
So what she did is, since she went a little bit more vertical, and actually wish I had done what you did, because
that's right. Remember that.
my mushroom's so crazy out there. Instead, she just added a second mushroom in to tie it in.
As a space filler.
And then knowing that even numbers are always awkward, you added the cap of one more right there.
Yep,
too.
I needed it.
So, anyway, so what we're going to start doing is we're going to start filling in some of our colors here. And so I want to make sure that the orange is the star. So I'm going to start with my orange. I'm going to take my biggest brush, rinse it off really good, make sure it's dry. Sometimes if you, let me reach across here. Sometimes if you use the brush too wet, the paint just will push around too much. What? I'm drying my brush. Why did you hit me?
Because you were reading.
I was not reading.
I saw the squinty eyes.
No. All right. I want to make sure it's nice and dry, because if you have too much water on here, it's just, the paint's just going to push around.
Okay, so just plain orange, huh?
Yep, just plain orange.
And this is where you could use your fire red from last month if you have it, or any kind of red paint, but the orange is nice.
What would be really cool to do is, if you had some of that fire red left, would be to start with orange on your moon side, and then as you work your way across, just blend in a little bit of that red. That red was pretty transparent too, translucent, so...
And it was a real orangey red.
Yeah, it would work really good.
So are we aiming for a real solid fill-in, or like a thinner
Well, just
coat?
for right now, I mean, this paint probably is going to take 2 coats, but it doesn't really matter if it's like really densely orange. But just like a single coat right now, we'll do a second coat later. If you want to use a smaller brush to have a little bit more control, go for it. But I think challenge yourself, see how much control you can have with the big brush. But getting down in these little corners, you might want to use a smaller brush. So I'm just going to do the cap of this one. And go ahead and grab a little bit more orange, do the cap of this one. Don't be afraid of brushing on your line that's not going to cover, so you'll still be able to see your outline no matter what. So one of my favorite parts of this painting we'll do in a couple more steps, but I really love doing the white warts on it.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that was, how do we do this and make it easy, but also maintain that real chunky feel that those warts have? Which, you know, honestly, for a Thanksgiving, late October, Halloween painting time of year,
Mm-hmm.
the warts make it work.
Do you think that's what they're really called, or are they called like
I don't know.
tubercles or
Tubercles? Or I think you're just making things up.
Daniel can Google it.
I don't know. They look like a wart to me. What do they call it on a frog?
Warts. We're talking about the spots on the mushrooms that we're adding later, the white spots.
As if people don't know what a wart is. So again, it's totally okay to push this all the way out over your outline a bit. You're not going to cover it. You're not going to hide it.
But it can thin it out from the inside and sort of soften it up.
Mhm.
If you have,
Yeah.
if you are someone who uses a heavier hand, like it's super common in the beginning learning of painting that we tend to push a little harder than
Then we should.
yeah, and it's just learning. You learn as you go, but
Well, one of the things that like
Something
I've talked about in the studio is it's kind of like if you think about the brush as being a squeegee. The paint is water, it's liquid, and if you think of the brush can work like a squeegee. If you push down, and it'll just push the paint away if it's still very fluid-like. And so the main thing is to just very lightly think of transferring the paint from the brush to the canvas rather than, you know, brushing it on thick. If you're using like a thick, what?
The spots on mushrooms are apparently called spots.
All right, well, we'll be painting the spots later. Right now, if you're following your instructions, we're kind of on step 4, and we are just block filling some of our background tones. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I want to get the underside of this one cap. And I'm just going to take together a little bit of white, a little bit of yellow, and a touch of brown. You know, let's add a little bit of blue to it too. You don't have to, but I think a little bit of blue.
Oh, that's pretty mushroomy in color.
Yeah, you might need more brown.
White, yellow, blue, and brown, is that it?
Yep.
And how much of each?
Oh, just equal parts.
Okay.
I'm just going to start getting this darkened up. We'll darken it up more, but this is just a base tone.
Are you using this part, the darker part?
Yep. This painting is a building process, so everything we do is going to be building, 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 building. If we try to change it too much at once, our colors don't stay on top. So we'll let this dry a bit, and then we'll come back with some brown to really get it that capped hood feel. Now the next step.
Wikipedia calls them wordy spots.
All right, I was close. I'm going to just take some white and a little bit of that color that we just used, but mostly white and just a touch of that other. And I'm going to start filling in my stems. Use a little bit more white.
So we want it lighter than the background.
Lighter, well, not so much. I mean, yes and no. It's more that it's a different tone.
Okay.
Later on, we'll put some suggestions of some grass, which will darken up the background a little bit. But I am brushing basically using brush strokes that go the length of the stem. So if we do have brush strokes showing, it gives us a texture. Oh, we've got this little, I forgot, we've got the little, I don't know what this is called, but it's the breakaway.
I was wondering when you were going to add that.
Yeah, we'll add that in a second. Let's go ahead and get this filled in. I'm going to fill all my stems in with this color. I knew something was looking a little wonky with my first one.
Yeah, it's the little skirt thing.
Yeah, you know what that is? It's where it's connected to the stem, and then when it breaks away, it leaves that little membrane.
So it can regrow? Is that what the
No,
deal is?
it's just where it tears away. We're going to play with these stems more, so if you feel like, oh, it's not quite as different in tone as you want, we'll get there. We will get there. Yeah, I actually forgot the little bumps on the others too. Got carried away. Got
the microphone.
Got distracted by the microphone. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for distracting. No, that was good. Thank you for telling us.
Yeah, we.
So while we're at it, we're thinking about it. Let's go ahead and put this little breakaway skirt. And what we're talking about is this little shaggy thing here. Oh, come back. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my brush and some brown. Now your paint's wet, so it will be a little bit, it won't be perfect at first. but I'm basically just going to put a little jagged little collar on it. Then I'm going to fan it out, and almost like Charlie Brown skirt, Charlie Brown zigzags, but a little bit more jagged all the way across. Take that fill color we just used to fill the stem. Brush that into our outside edges so it's all the same. Quick, easy fix. We'll do some shading. One of the things we're going to do on this later is get some suggestion of some more organic kind of little cracks in like this. We got a little crack on the edge of the mushroom there, and we've got some little jagged cracks on that too. And a lot of that's just going to come through the process of building this up. And we'll do a couple coats. It's a building process. It's a building. We'll get there. Get there together. All right, the others. So one of the things that's going to be really important on this other part is we've got this little collar that comes down underneath.
The turtleneck.
It is. I was thinking about that too. But it's really, what you really want to do is you want to give it a little bit of a curve. And I want to paint my block fill over my original outline. Fill this in. And we'll do one on this other side too. Darn you, microphone.
Yeah, you're gonna have to put a disclaimer at the beginning of the video.
Real audio starts at 45
Zoom
minutes.
Forward to blah blah blah.
No. So I'm just filling in these little spots here. All right, cool. Now we got that fixed. Then our next thing, and again, we're going to keep playing with those. We're going to add more shadows. We're going to add more highlights. That's just kind of our base color. I'm going to use my medium-sized brush now, and I am going to use blue and brown, about equal parts. I'm going to add just a tiny dab of white just to add some opacity to it. This is our base tone for our rocks. We're just going to fill this in. I love this color for rocks. It's just brown and blue with just a little bit of white to cover. So all our little outlines and everything, we're going to rebuild those. So if you didn't get it perfect, and you can still see some, it's all right. It's all part of the process. I'm just going to put some little splotches in some of our other rocks down here. You know, what's interesting is this painting, even though it's very graphical in its finished context, it's really very much the same process I typically use in painting. So, you know, it's still the layering process. It's still the building of shadows and highlights. So, different style of painting, different results, but the same basic concepts. Make sure you guys are rinsing your brushes off when you're not using them. And we're done with the biggest brush, so go ahead and give it a good solid rinse and you can set it aside. Because everything else we're going to be doing from this point is going to be subtle little shifts and adjustments, nothing major. What we're going to do next is we are actually going to, let me double check my cheat sheet, make sure I'm doing it in the right order. Yeah, pretty much. We're going to next, I'm going to go ahead and I want this to dry down in here a little bit more. So we're going to work on our moon a bit more. And I'm going to use, I'm going to go with our number 4 flat brush. I'm going to make sure it's nice and rinsed. Nice and clean. And the first thing I'm going to do with this is I'm going to start with just some, I'm even going to make sure I get all the water. So I'm just taking and pinching the bristles. I'm just going to take some pure white. And I'm going to start up in this top corner. Or top. And I'm just going to blotch in. Kind of go working my way down. Is there a rocket launch today, I think? Or was that yesterday?
I don't know. Didn't hear anything about it.
So I'm just using this to kind of build up some texture. And the way I build up the texture, if you guys watch, I'll slow it down. I just take some paint on my brush. I literally just kind of let the brush dance around on the canvas. I hold the brush pretty far back so I don't have too much control.
Daniel says, I see you have Smurf Blue. There's plenty of space for Vanity Smurf or Sleepy Smurf. No, with Paul it would be Brainy Smurf.
I knew that was coming. Like I always say. That's you, Brainy Smurf. And it's funny that you say that, Daniel, because when I teach live in person, I refer to this color as Smurf Blue because it is the exact same shade. Well, and
I should have called it that when I shipped out the kits.
You know, adding
Smurf Blue.
adding a Smurf to this painting would be absolutely Smurf-tastic.
La la la
Oh, yeah.
la.
If you're gonna get mad at me for singing when you teach,
I didn't get mad at you.
you roll your eyes and you kick me under
I
the
just
table.
shut you down. No, I like the idea of a Smurf. I actually thought about adding like Frog or Toad back there, but that would be for extended class.
Yeah, so I'm gonna take a little bit more of my. If you're just doing blue, just use a little bit of blue. In fact, I'm just gonna use blue, and you can. Gotta have some on the brush. You can build up some extra dark if you want to, but the main thing we're going to do with getting the idea of craters is we're actually going to come in with some just pure blue in our small brush and just do some little half circles and circles. I actually really like this color tone down a bit. I feel like that was a solid decision. Okay. Next step. So that should be in a good place to start drying. I'm not going to worry about this top corner. If anything, I feel like the original, that dark top corner is too chunky and it kind of takes away from the painting a bit. But if you've done it chunky, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mine's chunky.
Yeah. I'm going to use now my number 4 still. And when I say it's a number 4, it's about a 1/4 inch wide, just flat brush, nothing fancy. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to build up my shadow under my cap. So I'm going to take my dark brown, just the brown. I'm going to start right along the base.
You're using number 4?
Number 4, just brown. I'm starting right along the edge here. And it starts to darken it up, and I don't want to... I'm going to kind of pull that color. So I'm not adding more paint now. I'm just taking what's already on the canvas, and I'm just pulling it down. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull that down my stem a bit, too. It's going to come down a little further on my stem because the stem's a little closer than that back part of the cap. You leave that a little bit choppy.
I liked Chunky Smurf. Yep, Chunky Smurf. That's quarantine Smurf.
Was there Chunky Smurf?
No.
I thought his name was Hefty.
Hefty. Yeah, that was Hefty.
Remember he had the tattoo? A little heart on his shoulder.
With the arrow going through it.
I used to love that show.
Me too.
I'm not going to lie.
We should watch it again just for nostalgia's sake.
I wonder if Greta would like it. She would say that there was all kinds of like things that are
not politically
correct, and she would say it's misogynistic.
Sigh, kids these days.
Why is there only one girl?
When you put the gills on in these later, do you add a little black to it? I don't know if mine's going to show up with just brown.
You know, the gills are actually kind of a bit of a train wreck.
Okay.
So
I'm ready for it.
Yeah, we'll do those later. I'm just going to blur this a bit. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of this brown still. I'm going to go right underneath this little skirt we painted in. And I'm not going straight across. I want this to be choppy and uneven.
Okay. Oh, stereo just kicked in.
Weird. Could be some YouTube issues tonight, too. That's the downside.
We'll blame YouTube.
We'll blame YouTube. That's the downside of live streaming, though, is because there are often...
glitches.
Yeah, audio glitches and bitrate glitches and things like that, versus if we record and upload, everything comes across pretty perfectly. So a little shadow under the cap, a little shadow under the turtleneck. Not a lot. And you can actually pull this down the left side of the stem a bit since it's away from the moon. You can do the same thing on this guy here. You can pull a little bit. Let me just kind of start on the edge and work my way towards the middle until it runs out. I'm going to do the same thing on this other mushroom over here, and then we're going to start doing some of the shading on the caps themselves. And this is the part that I stole from that artist.
What artist? The one online?
Yeah.
The YouTube horror anime artist?
Yeah.
Or I guess not anime. He does just Disney characters and...
One of my favorites was when he did the old McDonald's characters.
They were just horror icons themselves.
He had a good starting place.
This brown, this raw umber is the perfect shading color.
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite.
And you can build on it, but it's like you said, it's a friendly color or forgiving, whatever you called it.
It's friendly. It's not offensive.
That's it. You said it's not offensive.
It plays well with others. Oh, I call it polite.
Polite, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is a good color for that.
This is the kind that you can keep building it up until it almost feels black.
Mm-hmm.
So the other thing we're going to do right now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take some of this brown. And let's go ahead and switch brushes. Switch to our number 8. I'm going to take just a pretty good amount of this brown and brush it in along the base of my rocks.
This is just brown?
Just brown for now. We'll do some black in here later. In and around these other guys here.
So are we just creating a shadow from the rocks, basically?
Yep, just giving it some depth.
With our polite color.
Yep, and we'll come back. Because you can pull this color down. You can see it blends out really easy.
Or it would even wipe up with a paper towel if you get it quick enough. Like
yep.
If you get something, oh man, I don't like that.
Or
what
even
did
just,
I do? I've ruined it. No,
even just take, wipe your brush off and
use a clean brush.
It'll pick it up. Even if you get onto your rocks a bit with this, it's okay. And you know what I did in the original is I actually even took this color and kind of sketchy up a little bit up behind the rocks. I mean to the side of the rocks.
He's casting a shadow.
So it just feels like there's ground going up further. And just kind of let it fade out. And we'll add some, we'll mix some black with the brown later and just pull some of these deeper shadows out just a little bit more. I don't really want to use pure black on this painting. It takes away from it in a hurry. Or it just makes it too contrasty. All right, so using our brown still, this is the technique that I stole from the artist. Maybe I'll have to put his name in the description. And what I do is I just kind of start, I'm using the number 8. Just kind of start on the side away from the moon, and I just kind of start tapping. And if you get too much, it's okay.
How much paint are we putting on our brush?
Just a little bit. Just not very much. Because, and the thing is if you do too much, this orange will go over the brown really easy. Mm-hmm. So, but I start, and I'm just blotting the color on, and I'm going to work away from that darker side. And rather than trying to blend it out and feather it, I'm actually going to just decrease my density of blotting. And so what I mean is I'm going to let those blots break up and get further and further away.
So that helps give the mushroom a little texture too.
Yeah, and you
could always just dip your brush right in the orange and blot some orange right back over the brown if you felt like it needed
absolutely
to be smoothed out a little or better. I don't know, like a less contrast maybe if needed.
It'll help blend it. So like I'm actually doing that right now, and you can see is if you take a little bit of orange, like Jenny said, and start just past where your brown ended, and you can kind of blot this back in. And the trick though is you want it to be choppy. And I'll lift this up. We do our old school zoom technique, and you can see it's blotty and choppy, but because it gets less concentrated as you move away from the darker shadow, you end up with it feeling like it blends out. And this is actually more in keeping with like a impressionist style of doing a blend. Because if you look at impressionists, they do dabs of paint and splotches of paint rather than blends and fades. All right. You can do the same thing on, let's start on this guy right here. So this guy is going to start right down in this corner. And I'm just going to kind of get it pretty well saturated for just a little spot. And you can wipe your brush off. And just pick the paint up off the canvas. And work away up. If you need to add a little bit more paint, you can always, what I'll do is I'll get some on my brush and I'll tap it on the palette to get more paint off of it. Thinking about where the moon's coming from and thinking, okay, it's going to be more shaded on the other side. Now we do this before we put our wart spots on. So we're going to put those on later. And again, if you want to take a little bit of the orange in this transition, by all means, you can do it. You can even come back with the orange over the top later after it's dried. But fight that urge to try to blend it like you would like eyeshadow or something like that. Okay. Now this one in the middle, it's a little bit trickier because maybe there's a little bit of light catching this little flare out here. So rather than starting on the far right of it, I'm going to kind of start right through this little valley. Almost too much paint. But again, these colors are very polite. They work together well. Kind of give it more shape than you feel like maybe it needs. We'll pull some more definition out of these by highlighting or actually outlining these caps and stuff. How are we looking time-wise? Hour and 12. We're doing pretty good. Doing pretty good.
I think you say that every live stream.
Mm-hmm. We haven't hit 3 hours yet on any,
no.
So
that would be crazy.
That would be unfair. We've had a couple paintings in our studios over the years that sometimes bleed towards 3, but that's has more to do with
just teaching live is slower.
Teaching live takes more time. There's always a lot more questions. All right, so I'm going to use a little bit of this brown now too, and if I'm going too fast, you can always click pause and get caught up. I'm just going to start blotting in some brown on my rock. Kind of starting at the bottom. Same basic idea. Real blocky and choppy. And you can see you can kind of create some interesting textures and shapes with this really pretty easily. You know, using this brown is almost reminds me of more like using watercolor almost. The way you have to build it up. I must be wrong. She's got no comment.
No, I was thinking. Yes, you're right. You do build it up. You do. For sure. I was still working on my mushroom.
Well, we're going to work on our mushrooms some more because we're going to do some outlining. Let me see what make sure we're in the right spot. Reach up here. Yeah, we're in the right spot. So I want to let this cap here dry a little. Well, yeah, we could go ahead and put the spots on. That would be better to do that now. So the spots, we're going to use our number 8. We're going to rinse it. It doesn't have to be perfectly clean. And we're just basically going to take some white. And the thing that you're really going to want to make sure is that some of these overlap outside of the outline of your mushroom. So I'm going to start with this mushroom here. I'm going to just put a dab and a splot. Another one there. They don't have to be perfect.
Which brush are you using?
Just the number 8. Now, before you get too carried away with this, because this is like a super easy process, keep in mind you're going to do a little tiny outline around each of these. So
don't go too crazy.
Yeah, don't go too crazy. And it would be really good is if you... Ooh, I get a big one there. That's good.
Looks like you concentrated them mainly on the top.
Yeah, more towards the top. Because, I mean, you could do the whole cap. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want it to feel like actually like part of the mushroom. I wanted it to feel like an anomaly.
Like a wart.
Like a wart, yeah. Like something that's not uncommon, but not a main feature.
Not a Shaggy Mane feature.
Dum dum dum.
Dad joke.
Let me roll my eyes.
Please do. Are these the kind that you eat and they're poisonous? Are the red with the white spots? Those are poisonous.
Well, technically they're poisonous whether you eat them or not.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, no, these are, I don't know. These are totally made up. These are probably, some people might really enjoy these mushrooms and some may not. I don't know.
We watched a pretty cool Netflix documentary on mushrooms. I am drawing a blank as to what it was called.
It was really good. I really enjoyed it.
It was kind of boring, but good. Like
it was a science documentary.
Like, yeah, I mean, it's like kind of low stress, like Bob Ross. Let me see what it was called because it's going to drive me crazy, and I always feel like I'm going to give you guys names if we're talking about something.
So one of the things you're going to want to try to make sure that you do while you do this is that you're not just creating a repeating pattern.
Fantastic Fungi. Fantastic Fungi. It's actually a really neat show on Netflix.
Not a sponsor.
Not a sponsor. It's got a lot of oddly satisfying film work, like the stop motion sped up growth of mushrooms. If you enjoy that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. That's that's mostly just in the beginning though. It seems like.
Well, they have it sprinkled throughout.
Do they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe it's because I paid attention longer. Yeah, I think the red ones with the white spots are definitely not edible. I think that's typically in general when you look in nature and you see something that's really brightly, intensely colored.
Yeah,
don't eat it.
Right.
Like,
except for red berries, it's the white berries that are the ones you don't want to eat.
No, it's red berries are hit and miss.
Yeah.
Blueberry, blue-colored, purple-colored berries, always good. Red, hit and miss. Orange, typically, there's hit and miss too. White, do not ever eat white. All right, next color. Next step. We're getting sidetracked talking about foraging. Let's talk about fiddlehead ferns and nettles, people. We're going to start using our small brush again. We're going to start adding more detail to these. And what we're really going to do is we're going to start adding some raggedness to the edges of our mushrooms, the bottom edges. And we're
you've got the little brush?
Yep, clean up our top edges. And I'm just going to start right along this little gap here, this little line here. And you can actually pull a little bit more of that color down from there if you want to. But then the other thing you want to do is with just the tiniest amount of paint, you can take this and just pull little
cuts.
You can do as many as you want. You can do
very few. You can do a lot. The other thing I want to do is I really want to emphasize this stem that comes down here.
So if you need to add a little black in your color, it would be fine right here. Huh?
Yeah, I didn't in the original, but if you feel like you need a little bit of black just to get it to pop, you can do so. But what I would do is mix the black with some brown, or actually add just a tiny touch of black to the brown. But yeah, this is where we get to have a little bit of fun and make it start feeling a little bit more natural. I mean, maybe this one's been open for a while and it's getting really ragged. I mean, it's up to you.
Pick me.
And you're not gonna, unfortunately, you're not gonna want to do that with the back side. We are gonna add our highlight, but you could mix up your sky or your background color and maybe put some little slits in the back side as well. But nobody's gonna really notice, you know, whether you do it or not. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and do the top part. I'm going to skip. I'm not going to worry about my warts yet. It might be the weirdest thing I've ever said. Because I'm going to go in between them, and I'll put some outlines on those. You're going to want to be careful because they're still pretty wet, so try not to drag into them.
We're just outlining between them if needed.
You should outline in between them. We really want this front one to jump out for us a little bit better. That's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do the stem in our little skirt here. Sometimes I get into using the small brush and I'm trying so hard to be very gentle in what I'm adding that I don't have enough paint on my brush. So if you have that happen too, guess what? It happens to all of us. And it's better to have that happen than it is to have a big glob. Oh no, what do I do now? You can have some little jagged lines that come up on this, break it up a bit. Maybe that doesn't need to be quite so intense, but maybe it does. I don't know. You tell me. Outline these stems. Now, something that we're going to do with the stems in just a few seconds is we're going to add some streaks to it so these outlines don't necessarily feel quite so out of place. Like sometimes outlines are good, sometimes they feel out of place, and we're going to try to make this painting feel like the outlines are not out of place by having it doing other elements that just kind of reinforce that they're there. Some quick little, and these don't have to be perfect outlines. Not a fan of perfect outlines. And outline your rocks. Especially like the rocks, the imperfection of outlining them sloppily actually looks better than if you do it really precise. Quick outlines. Oof, that one was carried away. That's all right. We're not going to outline the moon, though. That's the one thing we're going to leave unoutlined. You can do some little cracks on this one too, like maybe it's getting ready to pull away. Looking up at the monitor, this is actually one of my most satisfying paintings we've done. Like, it looks really nice on screen. So I'm going to take a little bit of this brown and mix it with a little bit of white. You can even add a little touch of yellow to it. You don't have to. But I want to mix up kind of a medium, not quite as brown as just pure brown, and obviously not pure white, but something that's a little bit darker than our stems. And what we're going to do is to kind of make it feel like these outlines belong. Is I'm just going to drag some little streaks up the stem, following its shape. And you can really maybe do a little bit more of the brown kind of down in this bottom where the rocks come together. But it's really just little quick little drags. If you do too much, you can always mix up some of your stem color again and streak some of it in too. But more than anything, what we're doing right now is just adding some texture. So it's not quite so... I wanted to have that sketchy look, like that art style we were talking about from the 60s and 70s, where it's not so perfectly blended and...
It was like shaded with pen and ink.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I think digital art has made us want to get everything blended so perfectly now.
Not always. Some of the
not
digital
always.
art.
Not always.
Some of it can really pass for a painting.
It's true. So if you mix a little bit more white into this, you can, or even just take a little bit of pure white, you can even add some streaks closer to your light source. You can play around with this part a lot. Just make sure that you're not just playing with it for the sake of playing with it. Well, I mean, you can do that too. There's nothing wrong with that. But make sure you're accomplishing something. You want to go back and undo it? You can go back and undo it. Just put a few little white streaks in there too on the sides facing the moon. We're gonna wrap this up real quick.
You still got some grasses and stuff.
We do. But that stuff doesn't take very much time.
Grasses?
Some deeper shadows under our rocks. Might do a little deeper shadow under this hood. But the others are pretty much done at this point outside of we do have to put some little hints of outlines around some of our spots. And I think the moon technique we're going to do next is really going to get us warmed up for those warts because we don't want to be real precise.
Warmed up for the warts.
Warmed up for the warts. I'm just going to take my smallest brush and a little bit of just the pure blue. Don't want a lot on the brush, so I'm going to make sure I've got a nice fine point. And I'm just going to look in this area and I'm just going to say, where are some areas that I can put some more definition to, some suggestions of some craters. So maybe you're enhancing brush strokes that are already there. Maybe you're adding craters. But I'm not really doing complete circles. You might do a couple if you want to. Maybe there's one right there that you can really see. But mostly we're just adding texture. So I'm going to do our old school zoom in. There it is. Nothing too crazy.
You're peeking at mine?
No, I'm peeking to see. I see comments.
Do you like to draw? This makes me think of those commercials from the 1980s where you send away drawings of turtles to be judged. Oh,
totally.
Yes, they were always in the back of magazines, those ads.
You could go join our art school if you prove that you're good enough. I think they accept everybody, though.
I think they do.
All right, so I'm going to rinse my my little brush off. I'm going to go ahead and, before we bring the black into the mix, let's go ahead and do our quick little outlines on our warts. So I'm going to take a little bit of brown. And again, I'm not going to get too precise with this.
Just a quick little suggestion.
Yeah. What's kind of nice too is you just add a couple extra little ones where maybe it's just not quite showing up. You don't have to outline the tops above the edge, but you do want to maybe have, maybe some of them are.
And you're just using brown?
Just brown, yep. Just add some extra little bits and baubles.
Bits and baubles.
Yeah. And you can even take just your little brush and just add some little speckles here and there. Maybe this one's big enough that it's casting a little shadow. You can do that too.
Big wart. I don't know. I can't decide if I like it with or without those outlines.
On the warts?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to do them.
Yeah, I was trying. I don't know.
I think of it more as being like more
I think I'm impartial.
That they are casting a little bit of a shadow.
Yeah, so maybe just doing a little like underline on the underside of them, the bottom side.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at my original. I did both, and it just doesn't really matter. It's up to you. The downside is, well, I mean, even if you outlined it, you could always put a blotch of white over the top of it if you don't love it.
The other thing you can do is what I'm doing. I mixed water with my brown, so I get a even more transparent shade.
Mm-hmm.
So then you are getting the same effect, but it's lighter.
It's also
if it felt too contrast.
It's also easier to get the fine little lines.
Yeah, having the water mixed in there. And you can always touch up with orange too. That works really good. Blend stuff out with orange if it feels too harsh.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's almost like as detailed of a painting as this feels, none of the actual individual steps are really that detailed, but the accumulation of them makes it feel detailed, if that makes sense. And a few little extra little spots. Yeah. All right, so while we're still using this brown, let's go ahead and we'll just use the same brush and we'll just start adding some hint of grass. Now, I actually like the way mine looks without the grass. I think for some reason the first one, I don't know, it felt like it needed grass in there, but I think it's because I've got mine lighter and so it stands out that way. So I'm not going to do as much grass, but I'll show you the original. I did a lot of grass up in around there. You don't need to do that, but it helped it stand out. And I think the thing is because I went lighter in my background to begin with on this one. Wow, Jenny's, yours is really detailed in a good way. That's where she shines. Anyway, but I think I'm going to do a couple little tufts of grass. Like I think I'll do one right behind this rock. And all you really have to do is just take your brush and just pull some little streaks. You can do one that comes up and bends back. It's broken.
You also need to add gills to the mushroom.
Yep, we'll get there. So I always kind of start at the bottom and just brush up. Oh, bird.
I forgot about this mushroom in the background on mine.
Oh,
it's the forgotten.
The little one?
Yes.
So I'm just going to put a couple little tufts of grass here. And you can do as much as you, or as little as you want. I kind of like the less. I wish I had done less in the original. I don't remember why I ended up, again, I think it was because I had done this center area darker and it just didn't stand out. So I was like, okay, let's just put grass in it and to hide it. So if you're running into that where it's like, it's kind of the same middle tone, you can do more grass. If you get into there and it's lighter like mine and it stands out fine, great. If you're darker and it stands out, great. There's no wrong. And if you just want a little extra texture by adding a little bit of grass, you can do that too. And it's just taking the fine brush and just kind of starting a central point. I'm just kind of tucking them in around the base of these. And every once in a while I'm doing a little broken blade, and what I do is I kind of come up and just give it a little tick there. But don't feel like you have to put the grass in if you don't want to. If you're really like, wow, I like it without it, that's cool. Just do what makes you happy. Again, I made a change on the fly as well, and it's just because as the painting was developing, I looked at it and thought, it just doesn't need it. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So there I was kind of running into this awkward little spot of what's going on down here, so I just took a little bit more brown and just kind of smudged it in so it kind of blends in. If you want to do any extra shadows using this brown, now's the time. We're just about done. We're just going to do just add a little bit. Jenny, you already did this on our, oh, you added some blue in the gills area. That looks really cool. I want to do that to mine.
Copycat. No, do it. It does look good.
It looks really cool. So what Jenny did, and I'm just going to use this little brush to do it, is she used some of this blue and brown together. Did you add some white to it too?
I actually used the mushroom stem color and added brown to it. And a little more blue.
Yeah. And so she does this kind of dirty denim kind of color and just...
Dirty denim.
What you can do is you can kind of start to create your gills.
Spelunker Smurf.
Just a little bit in here. No, I really like how that turned out.
You're welcome.
Alright, so I just blocked in a little bit of this color. But it really does help this middle area resolve better. Alright, so the next step is going to kind of be getting close to our last step. So we're going to do a little bit of darker just along this underside of this cap here, and then underneath our rocks we're going to imply our gills a little bit more, and then we're going to add our blue highlights, and that's not going to take very long. So I'm not even going to really worry about rinsing my brush. I'm going to take a little bit of black, a little bit of brown, mostly brown, and I'm not going to worry about coming down. Well, we'll see. I'm going to start right along this edge, maybe re-enhance a little bit of my little jaggeds. Now for my gills are going to kind of go from the stem away. You might just do this with just the brown. You can add a little bit more of this darkness up in this little corner here. The gills are not the most important part of this painting, but you can just imply some little streaks. You can see I did that.
And the structure is actually like the underside of an umbrella, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So it kind of goes away from the middle.
Out towards the ends.
Yep. Just a little extra darkness there. Use this little bit of color. Now what I'm doing is I'm just using it right along this underside of here, and then I'm just kind of wiping most of the paint off my brush and just kind of smudging it in. Like so. I really like that extra little bit of blue in there, Jenny. Good job. Your gills are so much better than mine too. Oof.
I gotta one-up you sometimes, man. Just kidding, I didn't one-up you. I didn't really one-up you. There's a couple things I over-detailed.
I think you did. And I'm okay with that.
Well, your landscapes, I can never come to that. I can never get to that level.
Sure you can. Anybody.
Well, it just takes, for me, it's like a lot of practicing loosening up.
Yeah. And that's always, you know, for anybody, it's that learning to let it go a little bit. I'm just doing a little tiny, I really like this blue under there, so I'm just going to add a little bit more. All right, cool. Getting carried away. Getting jiggy with it. Na. All right, so take a little bit more of our blue and black, small brush. The reason I like to use a small brush on this is I don't want to do very much. If I use a big brush, I end up getting too much going on. Take this color right in underneath my rocks. You can kind of create some extra texture if you want to. And I don't want to come down very far. I just kind of want to come down maybe 1/4 of an inch and then just kind of let it blend out. So it can be pretty harsh right along the bottom edge of this rock. And then just pick your brush up and brush down. You can do a little bit more so you can feel like this rock's really casting a shadow.
This is a long one.
Long painting?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're almost at 2 hours. We're almost done.
We're not normally this long.
No, this one's got a lot going on.
Yeah. It's not a bad thing. I like it. I'm enjoying painting.
Yeah, and if you guys are feeling like, oh, this is taking too long,
break it up.
Yeah, finish it tomorrow.
2 sessions.
Yep, finish it tomorrow. And we've had a few paintings that have the videos have gone.
Some of the
longer.
earlier ones.
Yeah, a lot of
dialed it in pretty good though.
A lot of it was us talking, but
yeah.
So much of this painting is just busy work. But when your co-host is complaining about it being long.
No, I just happened to glance at the clock and I was like, oh, it's gone longer than usual.
Yep. So that's about it as far as the dark down there. I just kind of wanted to get some in along the base of the rocks just to give them a little extra oomph. Last thing we're going to do, we're going to rinse our brush off. We're going to add a little hint of blue as highlight. So I'm just going to take a little bit of blue. You can actually dirty it up a little bit with some brown. And just these areas kind of facing the moon, I'm just going to take some, just put some little streaks. Maybe,
just on the orange part?
Yeah, I've got some on the orange. I'm going to add a little touch of white to it so it's a little brighter. Just right along the edge here.
I would go easy on this too. Very little paint on your brush. Just take it a tiny bit at a time to see if you like it, because you may not like it.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like mine didn't need it because we added the blue under
That's what I was thinking
underneath.
I think if it's done right, it'll look good.
But just a little hint. Where this really comes in nicely is on your stem here. Just a little bit here. A little bit here.
And on your rocks.
Yeah, and on the rocks. That's actually the best spot for this. A little bit on this. And I'm being really sloppy, broken up, choppy. add just a little hint there maybe. And on the rocks. Maybe a little bit on this stem. What I like to do on the rocks is just kind of take it and just really just kind of blot it on there. I really love this on the rocks, so this is where it balances out. And part of the reason we do this is yes, I know, it's not really a highlight color you're going to see very much, but it balances the blue that we used on the moon. That's it. So, last thing we're going to do, sign it. We're done. I'm just going to put my initials right in this bottom corner over here. Blue is perfect for that today. All right. You get my palette out of the way. Jenny really went to town on hers tonight. She's got some... Feels like she needs to one-up me tonight.
I'm a fun guy.
So let's see Jenny's. They're not
all dissimilar.
No, they're not that much different.
I just added a couple extra mushrooms.
Jenny just has a little bit more...
I used the blue a bit more.
A little bit more streakiness going on in the stems of the mushrooms. I really like how you did... You used a little bit of yellow up there too, it looks like, huh? Mm-hmm. On the caps of your mushrooms. You could do that. The only thing I don't love about mine, and yours actually is the same way, but it's the layout that I did, is it feels this little interaction right here, same on mine, it doesn't feel like the mushrooms behind the other one.
Yeah. I think you'd have to just do a bit more shading.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you wanted to, I'll show you how to do that real quick.
Thanks, Daniel.
You just take a little bit of brown. And just add a little bit more brown to the one behind. Just to create a little bit more separation. That helps a little.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's it, you guys. That's moonshrooms.
Moonshrooms.
So let's bring it back. Here we are.
It's us.
It's us. We're still alive. We're still awake. We're almost 2 hours in.
Yeah. So we've got a really crazy busy month, but we'll see you for the next video we do, whether it's recorded or live.
I do know that we are gonna do the Lighthouse live.
Okay. Yeah, and I put out a couple kids videos for Halloween too. Mm-hmm. So if you got kiddos who like to paint or maybe just like to watch painting, they're on the Go Box Art Crate YouTube channel, Cat and Bat. I think it's called Batty and Black Cat. Those are the
Black Cat and Batty?
Batty,
yeah. Yeah.
So those are the names of those. But yeah, we're a subscription box. Twice, you get 2 projects a month.
Yep.
That are shipped out in a pack when you.
She does one, I do one. Maybe we'll have a guest artist someday.
Yeah.
But right now it's just the 2 of us, so.
And your pack comes with everything you need to paint. The only thing you'll need to provide is a paper towel and a cup to wash your brushes.
A cup to wash your brushes in.
Yeah. So anyway, visit gobox.com if you want to find out more about that. You can also buy these as an individual kit if you don't want to do the subscription, but maybe you find a painting that we did in another video that you'd really like to do. We've been selling quite a few of those, especially holiday-related ones.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I think we're gonna say over and out here. It's been a couple hours.
It's been a couple hours, and it's been a glass of wine, and it's time to unwind.
Exactly. Okay. Well, it was nice painting with you guys. Hopefully, your paintings turn out awesome. Please join our Facebook group. It's a private group page called Go Box Art Crate. People post their paintings on there. They talk about challenges they had with different paintings. We'll give advice sometimes.
I'm not yawning.
And sometimes sneak peeks of upcoming projects. So try that out, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Let me end this stream. Bye.